Welcome to H2K Infosys. H2K Infosys is a e-verify business based in Atlanta, Georgia, United States. We provide 100% job-oriented, instructor-led, face-to-face, true live online software training programs. It also includes access to Cloud Test Lab with software tools. We provide live project for you to work on. We also provide assistance with mock interviews, resume preparation and review, and job placement assistance. H2K Infosys is trusted by so many students across the world. H2K Infosys provides world-class services in IT training with real-time project work for corporates and individuals, special IT training for MS students in the United States, software design, development, QA manual and automation, performance testing and maintenance, IT staff augmentation, job placement assistance, and tech support.
Folks, everyone able to listen to me and able to see my screen? Folks, any one of you have any doubts? Folks, everyone able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Folks, any of you have any doubts before we start the class? Okay. Today we'll be discussing the JSP scopes. What is a scope? The scope of an object describes the visibility. Folks, everyone, if you don't have any doubts, please mute your microphone and you could unmute and ask questions if you have any. The scope of an object, it describes the visibility of an object, or how widely it is available and who can access it. We can access it in the same page, or we can access it across the application. So the scope of an object describes how widely the object is available and who will be able to access that object. For example, if an object is defined in a page scope, then that object is available only for the current request on the page. In case if the current page has access to this data and no one else can read it, let's say I'm going with a different request, the value of that object or the object is not available. And if the object is an application scope, then any page may use this data, because when it is an application scope, it's available for the entire application, which means until your server is off. So the objects that are in the application scope are available till we stop the server, or in a more technical words, till the container is switched off. So we have the page scope. Objects within page scope are accessible only within the page in which they are created. In a specific JSP page, we create an object and say it's a page scope. Those objects are available only in the page they are created. So the data is valid only during the processing of the current response. Once the response is sent back to the browser, the data is no longer valid. Let's say if the request is forwarded to a different page, the data is lost. If the request is forwarded to another page, we lose the data that's present in the page scope and the request. The objects within the request scope, let's say I'm in page 1 and this page is redirecting or forwarding it to another page, right? As part of the same request, the data is still available. The page scope is available only within the page, but a request scope, it is within the request. Let's say if the request gets forwarded from page 1 to page 2, these objects which are defined in the request scope are still available in page 2 also. A session scope. The objects that are defined with the session scope are accessible for processing multiple requests that are in the same session. So let's say we have a session created, and let's say the session time is like 10 minutes, and with the session timeout is 10 minutes. Let's say if the second request comes within that time period, the data that's present in the session scope is still available. But let's say, when the users log out, right? So the session is closed at that instant. Or let's say if the specific information, even if you close the browser, it is storing it at the browser level, right? So that information will still be available with the session. The objects that are in session scope will still be available. And then we have the application scope. It's a wider scope wherein they are accessible across JSP pages that are present in the application. It's a global object that's created and that is available to all the pages. So we just say scope is an attribute, we just say it is an application. When we are setting some attributes in a page context, we can specify the scope of it. Or in a JSP, when we're declaring the variables, we have an attribute scope to define it. So any doubts in the page scope? In JSP scope? We have 4 page, request, session, and application. Like page being the most restricted or the narrow scope, and application being the wider.
The scope is not declared inside the scriptlet.
Inside the JSP, if you're declaring an object, right? Not sure.
Only for objects. It's not applicable for variables.
Even some variables we can put it. Even like it's a string, it's still an object, right? So if you're putting some variables also, we can specify a scope for it. Let's say in a page context, if you're I'm just looking, give me a minute.
Oh, here you
I'm just looking for an example.
Yeah, here there is one.
Yeah. Yes. So we are creating an object of the user here, right? That object is present in the session scope. So as long as the session is present, that particular object, the user object, is available in the session.
Okay.
So this is how we mentioned the scope for an object. It's an attribute scope that we specify.
The
So let's say,
UC and the UC, etc. with the
yes, it's a JSP tag. It's a JSP tag that's used to have, the whole an object. The objects that are used, you can specify it using the JSP UC.
Okay.
So
Yes,
actually, the data, let's say, the data that you're like entering is we store in an object. We having it in an object, and we are keeping that object in a session. Like it will be available for enter session. Let's say here there will be a link, let's say, to a next page. So even when you go to the next page, that user object is still available.
Okay, so the class is actually an existing class, and user is an instance variable inside the
yes, exactly. User is a kind of a variable that's given for the object of that specific class, and this is the class name, package name or class name.
Okay. Yeah, got it.
And let's say here, we can have some kind of an input that on action they get stored. Let's say here, let's say let me just go to this. So get name.html. Let's say I go to the browser. To the exact path as in which folder they are present in pages, and the name is getName.html. So it's a form wherein it's taking, different values for it. So here, let's say I'm saying. So when I just submit, right? We're just saying a page to continue, and when you go here, we are displaying the results over here. So these are set in an object. In a Java object, let's say I have all these variables are part of the request. So when I say action, the action I'm saying it as a savename.jsp. So what am I doing in a savename.jsp? Using the JSP set property tag, I'm setting all the variables in the user. I have an object that's here on the user data object, and the user data have all the properties, and we are setting all the properties. When it says start all the properties, that's all the data that's part of the request, and we are putting it in the session scope. So we just have a link, which when we click on it takes us to the next page 1.jsp, in which we are just displaying the contents back. We're saying name, we just displaying the details, the username, email, and the age that has entered. So finally, that's what we're able to see here. The next page one. Folks, everyone understood this flow? I just have a page here, right? It's a form wherein there are check boxes to enter the name, email address, and age. It's just normal HTML tag. The form, we are specifying the action as go to savename.jsp. So it goes to savename.jsp, and what's stand in the savename.jsp? We have created a user object. We have created the session, and we are setting the variables, or setting the data, all the properties in the user data object, just gave a name for it, let's say user. I mean, it's a kind of a variable name that could be used in future. Like if you want to get the contents of it, those are accessible using this specific ID that is given. So when someone clicks on the next page, what we're doing from the user, right? We're just using triplets. So this user object has get username, get email, and get age to get the data and bring on the screen. So any doubts in this?
Okay, so is it required to declare the use bean again in this page? Next page 1.jp?
Yes.
So Neha, if there are 10 users, they all are logging in the different browser at same time, then is it going to create like each thread for each request?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's not just that it creates a different cell.
And this nothing is related with the cookies or anything, right? Internet cookies?
No. Okay. It's not related with cookies. Cookies is something, some kind of a text file that is stored in your browser. Like if I'm requesting it, it will be stored in my browser. If you are requesting it, cookies are something that's part of your browser. It's no way, it's not a server content, actually. I mean, it's something that's stored in a server. No. Cookies are something that's at the browser level.
Okay, thank you.
So, any other doubts? I thought of showing it one of the course anyway. So, someone was asking some doubts. So, yes.
Yeah, is there any default scope there? For example, where we don't declare the scope session, is there like anything default based to any scope?
I think page is by default, though I'm not very sure. I think page is the default. If you Google for default scope, because I don't want to give you a wrong answer. I think it's page, but I'm not really sure about it.
Yeah, what is the advantage of page scope? Because you can see the information on the same page, right? So what will be the advantage?
I see they're kind of some generated things or some kind of encrypted data. Let's say you're entering some credit card information or something. You just want to have the encrypted data or the data that they have entered only in a page scope, right? You don't want to access it for some security purposes.
Okay, thank you.
So usually when we use a JSP, right, the JSP is something which is a mix of HTML and Java. Let's say I just want to bring the numbers from 1 to 5 and say each thing as them, right? So how do I do it? After the scriptlets that's spanning, in between the table series, right? So we have a for loop here, and if you observe here, the for loop closed as it is a Java code. We're keeping it as part of a scriptlet. So we have this table, and we have, a CR, and inside we have two TDs. Like CR is a row, and TD are different elements in that set. So every time it prints I, which means I goes from 1 to 5, and besides it, every time it prints, like, saying done. So this is an example wherein we mix, that's what usually a JSP is for. We mix the HTML content along with the Java content.
What is the percentage equal?
No, this is for the, the expression, getting the value of an expression. Remember we were discussing in yesterday's class? Let me just take you back there. In the very starting, when we were discussing about the declarations in SAS, like declaration, exclamatory is for declaration, and this is for the expression. This is whatever value you have here. That value you will get it. Let's say if I have specified as I, it gets a value of I.
Okay.
So it's an expression that gets, whose value gets rendered. If you see this here, it's I. So when you see in the screen, it's like it comes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because I is going from 1 to 5, right?
Right.
So that's an expression. And even if you observe in the next page, we are using the expressions to get, like, how the username and this are rendered using the expression, right? You observe it here?
I got it. Thank you, Neha.
Neha, the class is equal to user.user data. Do we have a Java class like user data?
Yes, we should have the user class user data.
Yeah, thanks, Neha.
So, whatever if they're using some class for the JSP page, of course, they should be present in the class part. We need to have those classes. Otherwise, the JSP won't be able to recognize it. But I'm saying create an object of a specific class, the JSP should know about the class. There should be that specific class in the class part of the project. Let's say I'm using a user data class, I have to specify the pre-qualified name of the class, and that specific class should be present in the class part. So, any doubts in this, or the getting the names of name and all the details, taking it and printing it? Any doubts on this? This example wherein we are making the HTML with Java content. See, when we get the data, right? So we can, instead of saying using a use case and keeping it in session, we can directly set the values inside the session. Like, we can set the attributes in a session. So this is one way, and that's another way. What we're doing along with the request, if something is coming along with the request, we are getting it from the request using the request.get parameter, and we are keeping it in the session. We're keeping that in the session. So when someone goes to the next page, not any page next to it, so they can retrieve the values from the session. So here it's going to next page.jsp. So what we're doing in the next page.jsp, we are getting the values from the session. Because in the previous page, we are setting it in the session. We don't have a bean or something. This one page. We keep the values in the session, and then we retrieve the values from the session. This is clear. We will set the values in the session on get back from the session, or we can use the JSP using the JSP call and set property. We can set the values inside it. One flow is from this input.jsp. Okay, let me close this. Explain it through one by one. Let's say the user is in input.jsp, and when the user is entering some detail, and he says submit. So we're setting the method as post, and the action, it goes to save.jsp. Let's say here we're saying input.jsp. Right? So here we have a provision of someone entering the first name and last name. So how did we get this? Here they're using input. It's an HTML tag. The input tag is an HTML tag we're using to render a text box. So we have a first name and a last name that we could enter here. Okay? This is your saying the first name is Steffi, and let's say I'm saying last name. This is the values I'm saying, and I have a button next to it, which is render. The status button. So I'm rendering a button. So when I submit it, what happens when a form is submitted? The action is save.jsp, so it goes to save.jsp. So what is there in save.jsp? From the request, it gets the parameters, first name. Here we have the first name as part of the request. They've given the name as first name. So these values, whatever is present in the form, they are available with the request. So we use request.getParameter to get the value of whatever has entered in the screen upon submit, and we are setting the attribute in the session. So this could be different than this. We're giving an attribute name here in the session. So we're setting the attribute. So whenever we click on this, what happens? It goes to save.jsp. It puts the first name in the session, and then in the body we have a link which takes us to the next page.jsp. It renders a link. Upon click, it goes to the next page.jsp. So what's there in the next page.jsp? They're saying hello, and we're getting the first name from the section, and we are displaying it to the user. So when we see continue, right? So we say hello Pratik, whatever the first name we have entered. So this flow is clear at your the values.
Neha?
Yes, Rahul?
Yeah. We store values, we can store values in the request object you said, right?
Those are available within the request. Yes, we can put something with the request and we can transfer the request. Can be done, yes.
Okay.
And here we are putting the attribute in a session. You see it? We are setting session. Yeah. See, whenever we have some values in the form, whenever we submit the form, the values inside the form will be part of the request. Folks, everyone please pay attention. See, how am I getting it from the request, the F name? So this is a form. Okay? The variables, the tags or whatever is present in the form, when we submit the form, there will be a request that goes. So all the data that's present in the form will be available as part of the request. From the request, we can get it by using the method getParameter and passing like the first name or last name. So once we get this value, here we are setting the attribute with the name first name in the session. So that when navigate at any point of time, we can get the attribute if we wish from the session. And if you see, we are using the expression to render the values here. So any doubts on this?
Neha, which is the servlet class corresponding to input.jsp?
They will be internally generated. We don't bother about it. We don't do anything for it.
Oh, so when we say method is equal to post, there is no linking to any do post method or something?
See, internally when it generates the servlet, it generates the code corresponding to the code what we written in JSP. But we don't do anything to generate the servlet. The translation happens in the servlet lifecycle. But we don't do anything for that. We don't create any servlet with input, or we don't configure any servlet in the web.xml. We don't do anything.
Okay.
Here, get attribute and get parameters, what is that method name? Are the same?
No, parameters are different from attribute. Did you attend the servlet class?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I should repeat. I'm just asking because we were discussing about the difference between attribute and parameters. See, parameters is something that comes as part of the request, and parameters can only be strings. They cannot be objects. And an attribute, we can put a whole object, as an attribute.
Okay.
The parameters, they are just strings. As part of the request, we can say, question mark, we can have any number of parameters.
Get parameter. Okay.
Those are the parameters that
So many of our students have given testimonials on how our training programs are. You will find them on kudzu.com and on our website H2KInfosys.com. On our website H2KInfosys.com, you will also find more detailed information on who we are, the courses that we offer, what each course covers. Also, if you're interested in a demo program, please register on our homepage on the left-hand side. Just give us more information about yourself and we will send you a link for a demo class. The demo class is absolutely free. Experience our commitment by just attending an orientation workshop at no cost. Our team of faculty and advisors are here to guide you with the right information. If you still have more questions, please feel free to call us. Call us at 770-777-1269. This is a United States number. If you're calling from the UK, call us at 020-337-17615. You can also email us at training@h2kinfosys.com or h2kinfosys@gmail.com. Thank you for watching our videos. We wish you a great career in information technology.